We're going to shift gears now to take a futuristic look at messaging, the future of financial messaging, driving growth in an autonomous life cycle. I think it builds on a lot of what we're talking about, and it's Justin Orgel from Marigold is going to be presenting. This is going to be a very cool topic. After this topic, we have lunch and networking. So, you good to go? Yeah. Right.
A little bit about, can you guys hear me okay? Cool. I'm going to talk a little bit about messaging, FinServ lifecycle messaging, just to understand who's in the room here. Can you show a show of hands of who is involved in creating marketing communications, like outbound communications? Okay, so I'm in the right room here, I guess. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes here. Has anyone heard this show of hands before? The do more with less. I hear this 15 times a day. So I just want to make sure we're all human beings here before we start talking about machines. Just a gut check. So what we're going to talk about today is the maturity evolution here, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with Marigold. We do marketing. We have a marketing lifecycle marketing platform, everything from acquisition to loyalty, and these three buckets that you see here: automation, AI, autonomy. We have clients that sit in all areas of the marketing maturity here, and we're really trying to push clients into the AI and autonomy level. But what we'll talk about today for a few minutes is really just I've heard a few people on some of the panels talk about automation, who's my automation provider or marketing provider, and for me, it's interesting to hear how we're still in this automation phase. Because sometimes it feels like we're literally, it's like 1913 and it's like Model T plant in Michigan, and we have all these teams that are kind of just, we have the assembly line of campaigns, and it's like we're trying to get to this automated state, and it feels like there's a plateau. I call it the execution plateau, and ultimately what we're trying to do is leverage AI, but then go beyond that, right? And try and make sure that we can instill guardrails to be able to do a lot of cool stuff with less human intervention, but more human touch. And I like to think of this triad. If you see here, the triad that we're dealing with here around compliance and trust are really kind of the foundational stuff, right? So all of that stuff that is critical for FinServ marketing. What we're working a lot on at Marigold is ensuring the foundation is strong and adaptable, but also supercharging all the personalization stuff. So how can we balance personalization within the confines that we all have, which is the gorilla that the presenter just showed a minute ago around compliance. And we know that customers are really wanting connection, and I think it's interesting. I've been to a couple of these conferences that Snapchat is here, which is really cool because I think it speaks to the desire of a generation of people that are willing to give up information for more personalized experiences. They want more connection. There's a real changing landscape around trust and the kind of the upstarts and the fintech companies versus the kind of more traditional players. We work with both, so it's kind of interesting to see the different strategies and tactics that each are employing, and also the different perceptions around financial brands. And so I just wanted to highlight SoFi Plus because I think that they're doing something interesting here with regards to machine learning and membership model and basically taking the relationship banking model and making it more dynamic and more relevant, I think. And this is actually performing really well for them, from at least talking to some people and listening to some of their earnings reports. And there's a good baseline value proposition here, right? If you think, this generation that understands the value prop of an Amazon Prime, why haven't more banks done an Amazon Prime for their offerings? I was recently looking at different mortgage options, and I noticed, and in talking to all of the big traditional banks, they have a PDF that's just like a tier. It's just like, okay, put this amount of money in and you get this much off. And I think that what's cool that what SoFi is doing is they're creating a baseline of that, but they're also using machine learning and a lot of data to create more personalization around the offering behind the scenes. And just to illustrate and close this this is the painful points here. I wanted to get a show of hands in terms of like what people's manual pain points are in sending digital communications, Family Feud style. I just put a few in here. I'll talk through. So legal and compliance disclosures, show of hands. That was the gorilla from that previous one. How about segmentation? Show of hands. Okay. Personalization. Yep, the same folks here. How about fragmented data systems? One of my favorites. Okay, that's the winner. What else do we miss here? Any other ones? Anyone want to mention or share their pain points? Because I could play therapist here. What do you got? Table 2, something? You got anything? Anything else? Okay. It's a painful world sometimes to be a marketer. And so we're going to talk about the machine and the marketer because that's where we're at now, and that's the exciting part from my perspective. I'll go back to this slide again, and again, what we're working with clients on and love to have conversations on, separately in the back room over there, is around moving this maturity, leveraging AI. We're going to showcase some of the things and the ways that some of our clients are using AI and trying to move into this autonomous landscape, which again is thinking of it as a assistant, right? Not just an algorithm, but something that actually helps and empowers us to do a better job in our main job. So these are kind of our 4 pillars in the way that we're looking at leveraging some of the tools that we've created and how ML and AI and ultimately the autonomous marketing stack is benefiting us as human marketers. Okay, so the first one, my favorite one, is strategic advisory, right? So how do we actually get more people to do more with less? That's just a callback to that. How do we get more insights to be able to be empowered to make decisions? And we have some cool dashboards and things that are, we have something called Marigold Home, which I'll show you guys in a minute. Productivity amplifier. So this is really about like daily workflow. We have lots of clients that are generating content and leveraging our tools for compliance and back-end operations as well in the campaign process. I'll talk about that in a minute. Engagement accelerator, right? So if we're talking operational efficiency, we want to talk about ultimately the end state, which is the customer engagement. And so there's everything from dynamic send times to content to layout, and then like brand advocacy. I think again, the staying on brand, having guardrails, making sure it's compliant is obviously like table stakes. No negotiation there. Wanted to highlight kind of 6 kind of areas here to get a little bit more tactical in terms of like how clients are using and working with us to engage. And so I'll start with the first one, signals and moments. So a kind of classic one that everyone's probably familiar with here is next best action, right? So using all the data points to try and influence and trigger a lifecycle campaign to drive a next best action. Content decisioning, right? So like what is the combination of like design, layout, messaging that is going to resonate most? How do we predict that using tons of data points? Send time personalization, that's kind of a classic old school one, but it's kind of been supercharged with AI in terms of like combining that with the next one, which is frequency management. So not just the best time to send a campaign, but also understanding when there's been too many campaigns or you should not send campaigns, right? So trying to create that sweet spot. A lot of times, like in old school email marketing, we always would get the question of like, when's the best time to send an email, or how many emails should I send per week? And there is some baseline guidelines and data and benchmarks that we have to support that. But we're moving into this era, which is really exciting, which is like we're letting the machines do a lot of that work and to decide that based on the individual. And that goes to the next little pillar there around orchestration, right? So not just email, but when does it make sense to send an SMS, RCS, push? So what does that look like in terms of the very, very hyper-personalized experience? And then dynamic offers, that's another one. We do a lot of loyalty programs, so with loyalty, that's a big one. And offer management, so we work with some banks doing offer management as well. And a lot of the focus is, whether it's in FinServe or retail, is really focusing on how do I drive more conversion, but also preserve margin, right? There's definitely been a shift. If you're not a very promotional brand, there's a lot of brands that don't want to be seen as a promotional brand. So dynamic and personalized offers at the unique record level is something that we're seeing a lot of clients using, and it's a very effective way to engage and convert. This is just another kind of view of some of the things that I was talking about within the workflow process, right? So if you think about the next generation of customer engagement and operational efficiency, where is AI and autonomy, like where are those things kind of touching that process? So everything from like your audience segmentation, even the concept of segmentation is you're going to what we call like smart segmentation, which is like micro levels of individual messaging and permutations. You have the segments, you have the audiences, you have the personalization, you have the creative and the content, and then the compliance and legal people on the back end that have to handle all of that piece of it. Then there's the design, code, build, setup, and automation. So we have a lot of workflow optimization tools in our platform to help scale that. And then you have the reviews, the protocols, the optimization. So how do you keep refining it, making it a better process? So hopefully this visual is kind of helpful. This was kind of interesting, I thought, just in terms of like where we're at right now, and like in email specifically, like the interest. I thought it'd be interesting to see like what is the interest that people have in these like features, to enhance their marketing roles. And like, so this was just like looking at the 2023 to 2024 to today. I should probably update this. It's a couple months old, but basically, if you think about the different categories, like yes, automation, which is kind of like, it's personalization, I think is the most interesting. The send time, the content testing, predictive analytics, interactive content. So all that stuff, everyone's interested, right, in how do they do more with less, to go back to my opening quote. And so this is just some data there. And then in terms of like again, like going back to some of the stuff that Marigold's working on, this I think is a cool example. It's kind of like, I think of it as the foundation for the self-optimizing marketing. So this is not necessarily an autonomous example, but it's an example where it's scalable personalization. And if you think of a brand like Disney, they have an amazing emotional brand and connection with millions and millions of people. And the idea here was that we would create digital touch points within their rewards, credit cards, and debit cards, and their banking stuff, making that content come to life, right? So you have everything from a dynamic coupon to live video. What's the forecast at the park? Where's their content that's more fresh coming from the website? We can integrate into campaigns. Again, this is an email example. We do this in mobile as well. And then other types of interactive engagements like live reveal, other ways to engage. Some other examples here. Again, this is with our using our live clicker products, some personalization on cards, personalization of rates, live video. So I want to talk about more of the future, because we're launching something in January called Marigold Home, which is really exciting. And this is a little bit closer to what I had referenced earlier around you sign into the Marigold platform and you have basically a setup of like the performance of your campaigns, but also what you should do to optimize your program. So this is where, if you think of like, I want a strategic advisor, this is that concept in real life. The strategic advisor is actually providing recommendations, but then also providing the campaigns that you can execute against those recommendations in a very kind of simple workflow. And would be happy to demo this for anyone that might be interested. We've also started playing in kind of the agentic AI space with conversational journeys. So this is also new in our world as well. So thinking about the other side of the click, so someone clicks from a campaign, what happens, right? So key use cases here, obviously customer service. I think financial advice is another good one, right? So if you think about the session right before this, they were talking about the advisors, like the advisors can have their own agentic setups as well, which is kind of cool. And we've been getting really good results from these agentic experiences. And so this is just kind of showing, okay, in most current experiences, right, you have these outbound messages, or you have CTAs, or different types of like click-based KPIs, and you're getting more kind of conversational analytics, which is really cool. We're getting a lot higher engagement. A lot of companies that are, especially again, like the use case of services and advice in FinServe is kind of a key use case there. All the stuff I've said, I think it's important to note that it's not perfect, right? There's a lot of risk, especially within the banking environment. I do think it's pretty inspiring, though, if you look at like what Citibank is doing, for example. Like Citi, they have a CTO, and you can go read about this online. It's pretty cool. Their CTO is very gung-ho on AI and the implementation of AI to empower their existing workforce. And so they've executed a number of tools that are empowering their workforce to, obviously for the workforce itself to be more productive, but they're also consumer-facing agentic tools as well, and some other really cool stuff. So I would encourage you to check out what they're doing, because I think they're one of the bigger banks that have gone out there and said, like, we're not afraid, like we're not going to just be very cautious. We're going to actually like dive in and embrace the new world that we're living in, and I think what they're doing is really cool. So nothing's perfect. Some takeaways here. The clock's not working, by the way, so I have no idea what time it is. But you guys are probably hungry at this point. 8 minutes. Okay, awesome. I think the key takeaway here is like autonomy doesn't mean less human, right? This is like your machine partner, right? Build a unified, adaptive customer view. So Marigold is actually being acquired by a company called Zeta Global. They're a big data company that has a really strong CDP, and I think the adaptive customer view, that's a new capability that we're going to have in the next few months, which is really cool. And ultimately, again, I'm being a little bit of a broken record, but the whole point of all this stuff and embracing all these tools is to make us better and to allow us to do less with more. Do more with less. So I want to share a couple things on some other client examples of how they're using some of the AI functionality and stuff. So compliance, using it to assess risk and for copy and content. That's a pretty good use case from a back office perspective. We also have seen a number of clients that have like AI councils. So this is an example where before they operationalize a new AI tool or choose a vendor, they have a number of like subject matter experts from different parts of the business that are providing a perspective, making sure everything is compliant. There's obviously a legal process there as well, but what they're doing is there's a lot of content optimization. So there's the content risk part of it, and then there's the content optimization, like what's going to actually work at the individual personalized content level. And then for a lifecycle marketer, and this is another example here, again, using creating content in a campaign, creating copy, images, all that kind of stuff, using the tool as well is a fairly common use case from a kind of marketing manager level. You see that a lot. And then like another good one is like from a B2B perspective is like language and localization. That's a pretty common one. Again, all of these are kind of accelerators, I think, and are exciting. And then I just wanted to have a few quick examples that we all can relate to in real life that we may not think about as much, or maybe because we're marketers, hopefully in this room you've thought about a little bit, but the idea of, you think of Amazon, Uber, and Spotify. Those are examples of brands that I personally engage with every day, so I was thinking more about how they're doing things kind of behind the scenes. And like if you think about I was talking about dynamic offers, like real-time product recommendations, next best offer, inventory, all that stuff is being done at a personalized level. We interact with that, right? So some of these principles that we kind of see some of these leading brands do, Spotify is a great one around the algatorial model. I wanted to share these here because just to remind us that we can take some of these principles and bring it to our everyday life, right? And bring it to the marketing that we do to enhance the experience, to enhance our jobs, hopefully. And then in terms of just, what are the next steps here? Think about a use case. If you're not doing any of this stuff today, if you're just doing automation, let's say, right, and you want to move into AI, you want to dabble with it a little bit, or you want to actually, if you're doing some AI stuff, you want to level up and get into more autonomous, take a use case. Obviously you need your compliance partner and stuff like that, but come talk to us as well. We're happy to consult on that or provide any guidance. But the whole point is testing, learning, scaling yourself. How do you scale yourself? And this is the last slide here, just calling out, we work with lots of great brands, so come talk to us. We have Dan and Scott we have that little booth thing. Come talk. I have 4 minutes left. Any questions? Anyone want to talk about manual pain points that we can maybe solve with technology? Okay, guys, you're hungry, clearly. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.